to Bearded Biomed.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to an all-new episode of Bearded Biomed. It's been a while. I'm happy to be here. Today I'm talking to somebody that is shaping HTM from a different angle, not just through equipment or operations, the technical side, but through leadership. And because at the end of the day, every piece of equipment that technicians work on, they're behind it, but there's also the aspect of leadership that we can't leave behind. So the idea of leadership to me is also leaving a legacy of those that you train up to possibly be better than you, giving them the tools that you didn't have. And the gentleman that I have here that you see and that you will hear has spent years thinking about what that legacy is going to be and putting it into practice. You may have heard what he has coined and the industry is taking to the Massey Method. If you listen to anything I've said over the past 5 years, then you know that these are the kind of conversations that I love because it's near and dear to my heart. Conversations about leadership, growth, challenging ourselves, ultimately leaving the profession better than we found it, right? That's stewardship. And my hope today isn't just to necessarily rehash your resume, Eric. It's more to ask some questions that maybe you've answered hundreds of times, but also come at it from a different perspective and some of the other reviews and things that you've put down on paper. So I want to understand how you think, what you've learned over the years, and maybe give people a conversation they weren't expecting. So with all due, Eric Massey, welcome to the Bearded Biomed podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on today with you.
So let's get into starting it off here. If someone had never met Eric Massey before today, who are you beyond the job title?
Who am I beyond the job title? Job takes up the majority of my time. Not gonna lie with that, but it's actually truly something I love, though. I really love this industry, and I don't look at my work day as actual work day because I truly enjoy it. Like, for example, right now I'm currently in Denver, Colorado, starting up an imaging startup out here, and that's one of my favorite things to do is to build out imaging programs as a leader here for Intellis. But outside of work, I'm a hiker. I really enjoy hiking.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why I live in Colorado. I'm originally from Massachusetts, and I spent a majority of my life, playing in New Hampshire in the mountains. And Colorado, those New Hampshire mountains on steroids out here. So it's absolutely gorgeous. And that's what I do in my free time. I hike, I snowboard. I'm very active. I'm not someone that just sits at home and watches TV. That's something I don't do.
Yeah, the recent Amy exchange was my first time in Colorado. Me and the wife both went up to Rocky Mountain National Park and did some hiking up there. It was breathtaking.
It is. It's gorgeous.
I dabble in some photography on the side as well. I was able to get a really cool picture of a baby moose and her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Just the nature of Colorado is pretty cool. And then we actually went down to the Garden of the Gods as well down in Colorado Springs, which is pretty awesome too. So
I was there yesterday, actually. I was meeting with a partner.
Plenty of good hiking in Colorado.
Yep. It is.
So,
it's an amazing state. Yep.
You've had, obviously you've really hashed out kind of what a leadership track should be and what people should dive into and some of the macronations behind it. I guess to start off, what would you say you've changed your mind about when it comes to this profession and leadership in general, maybe over the past several years?
Over the past several years, it's actually one of the things that drives me, with the Massey Method. I started out as a technician before I became a leader. I started out as a Biomed, worked my way up the ladder, got trained on imaging devices, got into imaging, and then, I was a high performing technician. And then I got thrown into a leadership position. And, my mindset was always answer every single call. The second the phone rings, jump on this. And when I first got into a director's role, I never really got any training. It's like, hey, the equipment, here you go,
Right.
Run the account. But no one ever taught me how to manage myself. And I always thought that you had to answer every phone call when it came in, respond, stop what you're doing, jump on this, jump on that. And what that ended up doing, actually, I speak about this in my presentations too at the MD Expos. And I'm going to be doing it in Seattle, actually, at the MD Expo Mixer. And, when I was working like that, I was extremely busy, not getting sleep at night, mind constantly racing. And I actually put myself in the hospital. In 2020, I thought I was having a heart attack. It happened multiple times where I went into the doctors to get checked, and they're like, "No, nothing's wrong with you." But yeah, one time in Orlando, Florida, I went in and I really thought I was going to die when I went in there. They came in, and when the guy came into the ED to tell me what he actually found out, because they drew my blood, showed there was nothing wrong with my heart. They're like, "You actually have vital signs of a professional athlete." But when he walked in to tell me what was truly wrong, I had my computer on my lap, and I had an HDMI cable connected up to the monitor. I was doing my finance report in the ED, and he was like, "This is what's wrong with you." He goes, "You're having panic attacks, stress-related issues,
Yeah.
'cause you're not taking care of yourself, and you're not managing your time appropriately." And so what happened there was, my boss, when I talked to her about it, Lisa Fry, she was the best boss I've ever had in my life. And, she ended up getting me into the Better Up program, which is a leadership coaching program that's offered through our company. And this is the first time I ever had any coaching on leadership, and how to manage yourself. And after I did that program for a year that was offered through my company, I was like, man, I wish I had this, back when I started, prior to even coming on board with Crothall / Intellis. And, so that got me thinking, I went and hired my own coach after that program was done and paid with my own money. And I still do that today, getting leadership coaching and how to manage yourself. And that's the one thing, I would change, is learning how to, utilize my calendar, blocking my time, actually ignoring, not saying like ignoring phone calls, like you're not returning them, but, scheduling that communication time where you're actually, you're not jumping from thing to thing, but you're actually giving back educated answers. You're not just sitting there randomly answering
Right.
your phone. But that's the one thing, I would have changed in my career. And it's one of the things I think, I see the most when I go into other accounts, when I'm starting up new business, is our leaders are usually high performing techs that come into directors roles, and they don't get that coaching, that mentorship, and that training how to manage themselves first. Before you start managing other people, you really need to learn how to manage yourself and your time, because it will drive you into the ground like it was
Yeah.
with me back in 2020.
No, it's I appreciate you sharing that because there is a level of stress management, self management, and leadership that, especially, the higher you go, there's less people around you to share the experiences with
Mhm.
and to kind of bounce ideas off of as well. I mean, you have leadership above you, but more often than not, you're almost on an iceberg sometimes. At least that's what it feels like for me.
Mhm.
And I mean, everybody that deals with finances, P&L sheets aggravate us all day long anyway. Understanding the soft skills embedded with leadership, especially if you've never had that prior. I mean, because we've all came from being a technician, and now you you doing a service to yourself to step into that next step.
Mhm.
You know, you gotta embed all the different things it takes to not only do the job for yourself, but be a good leader to those under you, so that way you're managing what you need to, and you can properly manage them. Take care
Absolutely.
of you before you can take care of others.
Yep. Absolutely. 100%. And, your job as a leader too is not to be involved in everything. You're there to build systems. You put the systems in place, and you give your people the tools that they need to succeed in their position. You're not there to micromanage. They're pushing them along all the time. Let them do their own job. Give them the space. Give them the tools. And if you build the correct tools and the correct systems, and you don't need to be involved in every single thing. You don't need to jump on every single email, every phone call that comes in. When the CT goes down, if you have the correct communication systems built, you can track that by looking in your email. Having them given status updates, and what we have is critical device alerts, where there's regular updates, and then you can see, like, oh, I should probably jump in right here and give a
Right.
little bit of advice, but you don't have to be fully involved in that. And it gives you some of your time back to focus on the bigger things, developing training plans, for your techs to continue to grow them, and, reduce that vendor and OEM spend.
So I am of the mindset that I like to challenge status quo.
Mhm.
There, as much as we have benefited from our predecessors that have laid the foundation, and rightly so, where we are now from 10, 20, 30 years ago, it shows
Mm,
the effort and the leadership that was, came before us. But we can always do better. We can always improve.
mhm.
What is the biggest misconception or lie that you think we've accepted about leadership?
The biggest lie that we've accepted about leadership, I mean, I'm still sitting there with people think that they need to be involved in everything, every step of the way. It's the micromanaging and the constant being involved in everything that's going on, where you're sitting there going, oh my God, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. There's a difference of being busy and being productive. Uh,
Yeah.
Being productive is you're actually accomplishing tasks. If you sit there all 8 hours and you're bouncing all around the place and then sit there at the end of the day, what I actually get done? And that's the thing that I teach is how to manage your calendar, manage your schedule with blocking time, finish one task before going to the next, and teaching people that you may think this is an emergency, but you don't need to drop what you're doing right now. This can wait till tomorrow. You need to own your calendar.
Right. And that's a habit that I think most organizations would actually praise. You being bouncing around here, there, in military as bomb as well. We would refer to you as high speed or, somebody that's always embedded in every situation. But that hurts organizations too, because it makes you less flexible. And those that could, you know, while they wouldn't handle it as quickly as you, if you do your
Mhm.
due diligence and disseminate, give them the opportunity to learn and also mentor them, then you're actually strengthening the organization as a whole.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm constantly coaching my directors on that. So everything that I've learned from my coaching, I give back to my team. And, I tell them too, and I'll test them sometimes that, you can ask a couple of my directors, if I call them at 8, because I tell them to block their first 3 hours of the morning. Their first 3 hours, they have to pick their top two priorities that they need to accomplish for the day, and they need to get those done within the first 3 hours. Obviously, some tasks take a couple days, but make sure that that's blocked and you actually have a plan and you're getting them done. So I know that those are their block times, and I'll call them sometimes at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And then one of them will answer my call. I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you answering my phone call? They're like, well, you're the boss. I'm like, you own your calendar. If you have block time right now where you're working on those two top priorities. I go, don't answer me and take care of my priorities. You have your own priorities to take
Yeah.
care of.
It's
Let
mutual
my thing go
respect,
to
right?
voicemail, and then you have a communication block for an hour right after that. And listen to my voicemail then, and then get me the information that I'm looking for after that communication window. So yeah, I'll test them once in a while on that.
So I get reached out to by a lot of younger folks that are either looking to enter their career field or they're on the beginning precipice of starting their career.
Mhm,
And, they have all these ideas of what they want to do, what they want to accomplish. Some of us that have been in the field 10, 15, 20 years plus that have gone through the heartaches or the strain of building your career.
mhm,
We at least from my standpoint, there is a aspect of, do everything you can that you have control of, right? But at
correct.
the
Yeah,
same
I
time,
love
there
it.
is also a level of uh, luck and also your advantages you've placed with yourself through networking and other things. I have this problem within myself to where I always feel like I haven't done enough. I can have people walk up to me all day, man, I appreciate you've done this for me. You've accomplished this or whatever. I don't see it that way. And
Mhm,
I've come to find out a lot of people I've talked to over the years have that same thing. There is
yeah.
I think it's pointed to as like imposter syndrome almost as well.
I actually I relate to exactly with what you're saying right there, and it's something that I actually work on in the mornings because I have to write down my accomplishments because I actually never recognize my own accomplishments because like what you're saying, I constantly feel like I have to do more, and that's I never feel that sense of fulfillment. I always, as soon as I accomplish something, all right, I got to go on to the next thing. I need to do more. I got to get more done. So one of the things I've learned from my coaching is I actually do have to sit every morning and I write down all my accomplishments from from the prior day of what I did. So I'm focusing in the morning. I'm thinking about the accomplishments. And I do that without thinking about my task list coming up. So that does relate to me. And that is an issue that I get coached on regularly, because I'm never satisfied. I always want more.
So let me ask you this: what motivates you when nobody's watching?
What
What
motivate Oh, I
what's
used to
your
by
drive?
myself all the time. My drive, I got multiple drives. So like I said, my drive with the Massey Method is what I talked about, what happened to me. I don't want any inspiring leaders that are coming into this field to go through what I had to go through, going through those panic attacks, that stress related stuff, not having a good quality of life where work's just completely running your life. That's another reason why I live in Colorado and I've lived in Florida. I live in beautiful areas on purpose. So, my job allows me to do that because I
Yeah.
oversee a large portion of the country. But I make sure that I live in these areas so I can go hiking in the mountains. That's my stress relief after. So yeah, that's one of the things that drives me on the Massey Method is to teach people all these things that I've learned across my career. And then the other thing on building out programs too, like what I'm doing right now here in Denver, Colorado, and then heading to Florida tomorrow morning to go do that. And that's building out imaging programs. That's another big drive for me. So I'm running around the country right now building out a new imaging program for one of my customers. And that's one of my drives too, to show them, that they can do this themselves, or partnering with us, and we can eliminate that high OEM spend. And it actually reduces the downtime when you get your on-site staff trained on these devices and you're getting that immediate response and not having to wait 4 hours. Or if you live in the mountains here in Colorado, sometimes they got to wait for someone to fly in from a major city. So like, that's another passionate thing of mine, these small hospitals that get neglected
Yeah,
in the
critical
mountains too.
access care. Yep.
Yeah, building out programs for them in-house where they're getting immediate response times.
So, with the people that you've spoken to just over the years, in implementing Massey Method into their daily routine,
Hmm?
what what what's one question that you wish people asked more often or implemented more often?
What's one question that they ask more often? Ask questions. That's probably the actual thing too. Sometimes they're always waiting for me to tell them what to do. And, if they don't know something,
Yeah.
one thing is, definitely, you know, ask questions. But the biggest thing, teaching and coaching people is keeping them off their phone and being reactive. Teaching communication windows and putting focus on your iPhone or whatever the Samsung. I just switched to Samsung. I got to figure that one out on my phone now. But I used to put the focus mode up. Making sure only important people that get through to you during your block times, because there's an imaging director that might need to call you and you have to answer, have that person being able to bypass. But, keeping them off their phones, keeping them focused, finish the tasks that you have in hand, focus on building systems and just knowing that they don't need to be involved in everything. Yeah.
So it makes me think too, when I'm training my technicians and,
Mhm.
and mentoring and everything, the fact that you pointed out, ask questions, there's almost a level of people have discomfort with asking questions,
Mhm.
right? And the funny part of that is, or at least the ironic aspect of it, and in the HTM ecosystem, in the biomed career field in general, we are inherently expected to constantly learn, adapt, evolve. You cannot do that without being curious, without being
Correct.
open, without asking questions. But there is almost like and I've had leadership like this within my career as well too. It's almost like figure it out on your own, which there is a level like from the troubleshooting aspect, when you get into something and you find something's above your head. All right, well now it's time to, tap somebody on the shoulder. Can you assist me with this? But I've never from any technician I've ever trained, mentored, whatever, ask questions because you might think of something in a different way that maybe us as leaders didn't convey to you that made sense to you. If I can answer it in the way you asked me to address it and it opens and provides clarity, I just gave you a extra notch on your belt to where it's going to help you be more successful.
Mhm.
And that is such a large aspect of mentorship in general, because you as a leader, a manager, mentor, whatever you want to coin yourself as, if you're not being open to those interactions on a daily basis, you're failing those under you, period. And I've also had conversations with a lot of younger techs that are either around my tenure or getting into the field, somewhere in between there. And there has been at least a better precedent set from my generation of 15 to 25 years or whatever, that are more open to being mentors, whereas there's the folks that, I guess, and this isn't everybody, but I've heard it enough that I'm mentioning it on this episode. There are the folks that come before us that feel that their worth or their job as a whole is at risk if they pour into somebody that is trying to learn from them. And that is not how leadership works. That's actually not how anything grows in general. You have to be able, honestly, your worth is actually, you're more valuable to me as a senior technician, as a somebody that's a manager that's willing to build up the person under them. And there's a saying that a director of mine that I've had in my career said, as I move up, I want to make sure you move up with me. Well, how do you do that? You make sure they got the tools they need. You make sure you answer the questions they need. And hopefully we're moving towards that, to where that's just commonplace, but that is still out there. And for those that are listening, what would be your take if people find themselves in that situation, to where they're not getting mentorship, to where they're not getting poured into?
The biggest thing, with mentorship and leadership too, a lot of leaders I see, they give directives, and, to the question asking, you got to ask the right questions and have those questions line up, because you're guiding that person to the answer, but you need to let them come up with the answer. And that's how they truly learn, is coming to that answer themselves. And you being a good leader, you got to, or mentor, you got to ask the right questions to guide them, because you've already been there and you know where to get them. And just set those questions out, let them make their own decisions. And that's how they're truly going to learn what they're going to do. And that's what great leaders do. They ask questions and they guide people to these things, rather than saying, do this, do that, do that. Yeah, that's not a good leader at all.
That's a manager.
Yes, correct. Yep.
An ineffective
And that's one
one
of
at
the things,
that.
I see that does lack in this industry too. We do, we need, and that's what you learn from coaching. That's what I learned that too. I was like that when I first came in, when I started being a director, probably 15 years ago. So I was like that too, because like, all right, I'm the one with all the knowledge. You go do this, you go do that. But then once you start getting coaching and learning, and that's what coaching is they're asking you questions, they're getting you to come up with these answers. And that's when I started learning. It's like,
And
I got this all wrong.
I'll follow that up too for the leaders that are listening to this. If you leave the organization, or maybe you just take PTO for a few weeks, a couple weeks or whatever, which none of us really take that much PTO that often, give yourself more time off, leaders. Work-life balance. But anyway, if you were to take PTO, or if you were to leave the organization you're currently working with, do you think things would catch on fire? If you feel that way, then there's work to do. If you can't step away and trust the processes, the systems, the people that you've mentored or have working under you, if you don't feel that they can sustain by you walking away, that is your flash moment right now that, hey, it's time to start putting in the work.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. You have to have succession planning. You have to have your replacement. I mentor my replacement once a week, and then he mentors all the directors that report into him. And then they mentor all the BMed 3s that are all under them, that are looking to step up next into the director's role. And then you have your BMed 3s mentoring the 2s, and the 2s down to the 1s.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And that way you have a pipeline built, so when someone leaves, you're not sitting there scrambling. And that's a big thing in leadership, not, building an internal pipeline, and then going to the MD expos, the AMEs, the local trade shows, being part of your local biomed groups, is you're also building a network outside too. So when someone goes, I never have issues hiring. I always hear people
Nope.
talking about this hiring thing. I don't have much turnover at all. The only time I ever have to go get people is when I start up new business like this. But I feel I posted 2 positions this week. I got eight applicants in a couple hours, but that comes from a large network of people.
Yeah, you can tap on people. Hey, I got this position up, you'd be perfect for it. You
Hmm.
don't got to go. That's ideally what networking is for,
Hmm.
to solve issues or gaps in what you have in place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
we've
can't
kind of
stress enough going to these trade shows and being a member of your local Biomed group and networking and seeing what other people do in different organizations,
right.
different hospital systems, but you build those relationships and then you hear those people of where they want to go in their career. So then it's like, all right, I just started a new business. I need an IC3, IC3, IC2. Oh, so and so I met at this conference said they were interested. Send them a text, don't send them the link and get them to apply. It's extremely important that networking to fill those roles.
It's not like you got to go to every show out there, but especially if you're stepping into, and I tell my technicians, at least make sure you go to something to open up your network. But if you're especially in a leadership position,
Mhm.
you're doing a disservice not only to those under you, but especially for yourself, because I would not be in the position I am with the context that I have today to basically answer any modicum of issue I have. I have CEOs, CFOs, business owners, like in my phone that I could reach out to at any point in time because of the network that I have built. That is
Mhm.
powerful. And as a leader, having that network in your back pocket, especially not only for your organization's benefit, but your own personal professional growth's benefit. You
Correct.
know,
Absolutely.
people like in your position that are looking for positions, like they know about opportunities before they even hit LinkedIn, right?
Mhm.
Just people, because people talk.
Yep.
And we're such a small field, right? Everybody I know right now of some really high tier people that are currently interviewing at other organizations because I have contacts of both sides, right? I
Mhm.
hear things. I hear stuff that's going to move, especially from private equity buyouts or, all that kind of stuff. Like the rumor
Mhm.
mill is also beneficial to you. So
Yes, it absolutely is. Yeah, I see a lot of these things happening before they actually happen through that networking. But yeah, that networking from these trade shows, you said the same thing. I got a whole bunch of CFOs, CEOs of hospital systems in my phone, and yeah, building that network too. When they run into an issue at their hospital, they send me a text and you help me out, and that
yeah.
generates new business, builds a pipeline. I'm a regional director. I'm not a sales rep, but I actually have a pretty decent sized sales funnel right now. It's due to that large network from people I meet at these shows and traveling around the country. But yeah, that's one thing too. Like I said, in my career, that I would be nowhere right now without going to those trade shows and the networking that I did. I started going to them back in, let's say 2015. I started attending the trade shows, and right when I started doing that, that's when my career really started taking off from just being a technician I was entry level director at that time. And yeah, my career just took off once I started going to those trade shows and building up that large network.
So we've kind of alluded and mentioned the Massey method a little bit,
Mhm.
but I there's always somebody that especially doesn't get on LinkedIn, no matter how many times we tell them, at least in our career field, is important to somewhat be plugged in.
Mhm.
So for those that are unfamiliar with the Massey method, give a general synopsis of what you've built out and what it aims to do.
So, what I've built out. So, I mean, I just started this about a year ago, and I mentioned where this came from was from my own personal experiences going through this career and get put in the hospital, and I just don't want people to go through what I did. So I was like, I want to get into coaching. So I put myself through Brendan Bouchard's coaching program, and I actually went and became a leadership coach. I got certified in November as a leadership coach. So what I've been doing since then, I've been writing articles in Technation magazine, trying to educate people on how to manage their time, manage themselves, manage their people. And I've been presenting at the trade shows, and I've been coaching my own staff, developing, people within my region. And now I'm going to be looking, I'm going to be launching this as a side business where I'm going to be coaching, HTM leaders, throughout our industry, on how to appropriately manage themselves and manage other people. So I'm going to be offering, coaching. I could do leadership classes, and I'm going to be looking to launch that in the next few months.
Do you have a personal, maybe success story of somebody whose maybe life or profession, career trajectory changed after implementing Massey Method?
Yeah, you could probably talk to my unit director in Dallas, Tony Lewis. He's the one that talks about it all the time. I started coaching him over a year ago now, and he was new coming into the director's role. He knew how to, be a technician. And when he came in, he was going through all those problems. He was having stress related issues because, he didn't know how to manage his time. And I put him through a 12-week coaching session last year. And he also came back and told me that his wife was actually thanking me because he was getting more time at home. He was more relaxed back at home. So yeah, he's someone could talk to see how the coaching went, because he was a newer director in his role. And yeah, I put him through my 12-week program.
So, without sharing just all the secret sauce, what are some of the key core principles of Massey Method?
The key core principles is owning your calendar. And then I teach too how to build, the system, so you're not having to be involved in that. So the presentation I've been doing at MD Expo, Blueprint of being a quality HCM director, that's sort of like an overview of what the whole program is, from, managing a calendar, service delivery, and finance review. And I mean finance review, looking to where your money's going on vendor spend, identifying training opportunities, which, the more you train your staff, the less turnover you're going to get. If you have full career paths built for your staff, they're never going to leave you. If they got constant growth, you're giving them the appropriate raises at the right time and continuing to develop them. And then I also talk about how to communicate to leadership too, because that's one thing I feel that technicians don't know how to do.
Yeah.
When I have new directors, they're always wanting to talk about PM completion, work order completion. When you're talking to a CFO, he doesn't care about that. He wants
Yeah.
to
You know,
get
you know what I
dollars.
call that? I call that C-suite knees.
So, I got to teach them too, is yes, that's extremely important about your job. But when you're sitting there talking to someone in a C-suite, it's about uptime on that equipment. But even saying, uptime, you got to word that too on, with that system being up, how much did that hospital, save? Because when those systems are down, they're losing revenue. So, speaking that language too on how much money they're saving with that equipment being up. Yeah, it's always in the terms of finances and patient safety when you're talking with the C-suite. So that's another thing I go over with them. It's not just about work order completion and PM completion.
With the career trajectory
Mhm.
of managers, right? And everybody has their own path. And of course, every organization has their own kind of prerequisites of what they need. I actually had somebody message me on YouTube the other day and they're like, hey, I'm trying to figure out how I'm supposed to lay out my path, right? But it doesn't seem there is a universal consensus on how that path is supposed to look. There's resources out there, right? Like
Mhm.
Amy has a career path, but every organization, they're going to ask different things of you. They're going to have things that you are required to do versus other places that might not need you to do anything at all. So how do you navigate that? Because you know, I told them you just got to be essentially open to wherever you're trying to look at, or maybe try and navigate the organization you're in.
Mhm.
But there is no one piece fits all,
There isn't.
and
And
that's you have to be adaptable to it.
absolutely, you have to be adaptable to it. And then if you're with an organization too that doesn't have the appropriate career path for you, leave. Go to one that does. So
That's
one,
that is another good point.
yep.
I had somebody said, "Hey, I'm interviewing. What's something I should ask?" I said, "Every shop, every organization that you're looking to work for, they should have some modicum of a career ladder. It's 2026.
Mhm.
There should be a clear depiction of what you need to do to move up the reins. If they don't, to me, that is a red flag today."
Yep. Absolutely. And that's important. And so I'm lucky, I work for a very large company. So, I manage one section of our company across the US. But, when I build those career paths for everyone that reports under me, I always don't, they might want to go to imaging or anesthesia or sterilizers or
Mhm.
whatever it is they want to go to. I might not have that. If I have a really good anesthesia tech in this area, and they're going to be here for another 30 years because they don't want to leave. I don't have that for them, but being in a part of a large organization, I get to look at other accounts for them too. And I'd be like, I don't have this for you right here. I don't want to lose you. You're one of my great employees, but this is the best path for you is to move to Houston or something like that, to this
Mhm.
hospital that does have exactly what you need. And that also, the technicians respect you for that too,
Oh
or your
yeah.
directors, whoever you're working for, because you're putting their needs ahead of what yours are, because it really does suck to lose that BMET 2 wanting to get to that BMET 3 in your region. But if you have a good succession plan, you got someone right there to move up, and then they get to grow and go to where they want. But yeah, if you work for a smaller company and you're not getting from them what you need to grow, you should leave. This is your life. This is your career, and you should own that. And yeah, you just not doing work for the company and doing what they say. This is about you and growing you.
So if a brand new biomed, potential biomed's listening today,
Mhm.
what's one principle you think they could apply tomorrow?
For a principal for a biomed coming in,
Yeah, somebody that's just starting out in their career, what's something they could take from Massey Method that they could implement into their daily routine, possibly, to start building the soft skills they need to
the
for
soft skills. So
when they do get called up.
yeah. So, I mean, the first thing I train this on with the BMETs too. It's a little bit of the leadership and the block time thing. I require all my biomeds in the morning to block their first hour of time to do all their documentation. And so that's one thing too, to stop from reactive work. Because one thing I see in the field with BMETs is, same thing. They're jumping from call to call.
Yeah, and they're
And
not slowing down.
yep. And this industry now is all about data analytics. All the hospitals now, they want to see the data analytics. So you need to ensure that the data going into your database is good data going in. And if your biomeds are reactive and they're just doing their work orders whenever they find time, that's just not going to work for the data that you need, but it's also driving them into the ground, the same as it would drive a leader into the ground. So I teach them how to own their calendar too, and block that 1 hour in the morning, do your documentation. It's over with. You're not going to hear from me. You're not going to hear from anybody about get this completed, get that completed, because it's done first thing in the morning. Gives you a sigh of relief. And it's like, oh, I can go about my day now and go fix whatever I got. Same thing too. Block your PM times and things like that. Just learn to schedule everything in your calendar. And that's the one thing I would give to a BMET coming into this industry. Same thing as a leader. Learn to own your calendar. Put everything in your calendar. New work order comes in. If your schedule's full that day, be open and honest with them. I'll be there at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Pencil that into your calendar or whatever's open in there. If you don't have time in your calendar, you need to escalate that to your director so they can get it to somebody else. If you have automated systems like I do, it will automatically, you'll see that they're
Yeah.
doing their PMs and it'll dispatch it to the second person in the service delivery plan. So,
And the interesting part about this is to you and me, this
mhm,
is like, you know, regular, it makes sense,
mhm,
of course we would do that. Why wouldn't you? But a lot of these people that are they're just graduating college or they're just, this might be their very first like adult job. These are things you need to take to heart, folks,
mhm.
because no matter what industry you're in, you will be successful if you can manage your time,
Yep.
if you can communicate clearly what your needs are and address the needs of those that you're serving. Because it doesn't matter what job again you're doing. The US is very much a service economy. A lot of the jobs we do has some level of service tied into it, and HTM is service abundant.
Yep.
Being able to have that in your repertoire is gonna it will make you stand out quickly. And I've had so many technicians that been fortunate enough uh, to mentor, showcase that, and I know that they're gonna go for as far as they possibly want to.
Mhm. Yep, I got a few of those too that, I really enjoy seeing that, Jennifer Chester is one that I like a lot too, that, she's been a biomed that's worked for me in Houston, Texas. And she's one of those people that actually what I was kind of
Yeah.
talking about was sort of related to her. She was a BMet that wanted to get up into management and she applied for recently for a senior project management position and she got that, with our company. But that was me losing her out of my region, which I really loved having her in, but watching her grow and being the person she is. I took her to MD Expo with me in Nashville, was it 4 years ago, 5 years ago? And then her next gen mom taking off after she met people
Hmm.
there. And, she's involved in women in leadership. She's probably one of my favorite success stories of someone that's worked for me and, watching, grow in this HCM field right now.
So, what excites you most about the future of HTM and what worries you the most?
Uh, Probably the same thing. AI.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things because I sit there too, and I think back when I started in this field back in 2000, you know, I couldn't imagine being a director and overseeing the amount of business that I oversee right now across the country and not having those tools available to me. When you're wanting to sit there and go through your demand spend, now I have tools that I can sit there, load the Excel document up there, and then just 2 seconds and it's done. Before they didn't even have Excel, I think, when I started in 2000, it was just coming out and, you weren't even able to use B
You
lookup
you had
or
a
pivot tables
you had
then.
a personally assigned scribe.
Yeah. So I love the AI thing, but it also scares me too, because you need that human aspect in. You can't be if you don't understand your business, you don't understand the things about your business and where you're going, that tool can also really screw things up for you because that tool's only as good as the knowledge that you put into it to build it out. But if you have the knowledge of what you're doing, know how to build the instructions into these AI tools, you can do things a lot quicker now
Yeah.
than you could before. And you kind of can utilize AI as your own personal assistant. And then, also with healthcare too, it's involved in our equipment now too, and, diagnosing people. So
Mhm.
I like it because I see the benefits from it, but I know there are issues with it too. So there are parts of it that kind of scare me. And then also it will eliminate some jobs in the future too. So that's another thing, I'm scared of seeing too is some of that workforce you know, be eliminated due to AI. But if you're a good leader, you can take that workforce and develop them into new roles as you implement some AI too.
I have a love-hate relationship with it. I see the benefit of it, but at the same time, I feel like too much credence been given to AI. Like AI is the hot button topic, at least, the past this year for sure. Over the past several years prior, it's been cybersecurity, which they're both
Mm,
prominent. They're things we need to be aware of, but it's all anybody wants to talk about. Like they're just the end all buzzword, thing to have at every conference. And in my perspective, at least from where I see it, they're tools.
hmm
They are there to build efficiency, garner data, and just make things tangible and digestible, right?
hmm
And you still have to have good data in to have good data out.
Correct.
And I'm sure you've walked into numerous facilities because I have, and there's a lot of bad data. So
Yes,
before
there
you
is.
even start thinking about implementing AI, you got to make sure that people's stuff ain't jacked up because there's a lot
Yeah,
of bad data in healthcare.
there is.
I'm not comfortable.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's shocking sometimes too. Sometimes you go into some of these accounts and they don't even know their own inventory, and yeah, it is. There's some really bad data, but you can also train your AI tool to help clean up that data relatively
Mhm.
quickly for you if you teach it the right things. But if, like I said, if you don't know your business, you don't know the things that are wrong, that tool's not it's not going to work for you. So yeah, I have the love hate thing with it also because and it's something it's what I'm educating myself the most on right now too because I mean the field's going to go that way, the world's going that way, and there's no slowing it down or stopping it. So you got to learn it. You got to understand it. You need to see where you can implement it in your job, and you have to stay ahead of everybody else on it if you want to be great at what you do.
So I'll leave you with this final question. Everybody watching, listening to this episode, what's one idea that can change how they approach work, leadership, or even life? Like, what would that be that you would leave them with?
One idea, that be intentional about your time, uh, whether it's your calendar at work or about your time off outside of work, having that, work-life balance. It's needed if you want clarity in your head, so, your weekend should really be intentional about time for you. For me, that's spending it in the mountains here in Colorado or a beach in Florida. You have to have that time to clear your mind, and then being intentional about your time at work too. When you have those blocks, pay attention to what you're doing during that block. Stick to that. Don't go outside of that. I always have people worried about, well, I got to answer the phone if it's coming in. I'm like, if you're in a quarterly business review presenting to a customer for 3 hours, I go, you answering your phone in the middle of that? No,
Yeah.
because I'm in a quarterly business review. Your block time in the morning when you're building your service delivery plans and your systems and looking at your demand spend, building your training plans, that's no different than a quarterly business review presentation that you're doing. It's just as important. Block that the same way you block that. So that's what I think. Being intentional about your time, whether it's personal time, work time, that's the biggest advice I'd give to somebody.
I like that. It's something that I'm still learning. The more
Me too.
responsibility, the more you take on, especially when you start build, family, just more obligation. Like you have to be cognizant of how you're stretching yourself
Hmm.
and of what you're putting your energy towards people, work, things, whatever.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I agree. I have to be coached on this stuff too. I still do that once a week, meeting with my coach. Cause yeah, it's a constant work in progress. Everything changes. Like I said, I just had a new book of business dumped on me on Monday, and I got 2 weeks to go build it out right now, running across the country. So your schedule's constantly changing. You're getting more and more on your plate. And yeah, you gotta constantly adapt and grow from it. Yeah.
and I know you're a busy man. So first off, I just want to say thank you for being intentional and
Mhm.
blocking me some time in your calendar. Anybody that wants to learn more about the Massey Method, where can they find you?
They can look me up on my LinkedIn page, communicate through there. I'm going to be updating my website as we speak, and I'm going to release that in a couple months from now.
Awesome. I'll be sure to update the YouTube page with that as well, so people can find it.
Great.
So, first off, anybody that is watching, listening, just wanted to say thank you for tuning in. No, it's been a little bit since I've done a last episode, but just like everybody else, I'm busy trying to knock some things out for myself professionally and personally. And I appreciate you still tuning in. But there will be more episodes to come. We got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline that I think y'all can be excited about through new partnerships, ventures, and discussions to come. Please like, subscribe, share the show. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And at the end of the day, I'm here to support you guys just as Eric is. And may the beard be with you. Take care, and we will catch you at the next episode.
Bearded.